The first thing is that we have to make sure that they understand that the whole sales environment has changed, right? No longer is it a transaction sale. It's about relationship. I've even seen this recently. Like I was in this famous place here. Have you recognised this? Yes. But I was always amazed at the number of people coming up to me wanting to give me a tour, right? But they were very good at it. They would, instead of just asking me, oh, look, we would like to take you for a tour, it costs this amount of money, they would give me information, they would help me out, they would sort of say, oh, this is the best route, and then once we have a bit of a relationship, then they can actually sell me something. So even right here in the Hagia Sophia, you have this attempt at building relationships. Of course, we know what's really going on, but relationships is what it's all about. And if you like, what they're trying to do is provide an insight. And for me, an insight is an unexpected shift to a better story. This is psychologist Gary Klein really made this statement, and I think it really makes a lot of sense. So you're trying to help people come to a better story. Now, who here would say they're a storyteller? Storytellers? Few? I rarely get lots of people putting their hand up for that question. But here's the thing. There was some interesting research done a number of years ago where the researchers went out and listened to conversations that were happening in informal areas, in bars, in cafes, on trains. And the researchers were coding up what was being said, right? And it turns out that something like 60% of the time we're speaking, we're talking about who did what to whom. Essentially, we gossiped, right? When we're with our friends, we're talking about what's happening, and we're telling story upon story. Now, Robin Dunbar, who's the researcher who did this work, he had an interesting definition of gossip. He said gossip is whenever you're talking about someone when they're not in the conversation, right? So it turns out there's lots of positive gossip going on in organisations. People are saying things like, did you see what Mary did yesterday? Look, no one was going to say it, but she just brought it out there, put it in the middle of the table, opened up the conversation, and we got to a really good end result. Now, if Mary's not in the conversation, we're gossiping about her, but it's good gossip. It's positive gossip. Now, I tell you all that because, of course, the way in which we do it is we're sharing stories. So 60% of the time we're speaking, especially in informal areas, we're actually sharing stories. So everyone here is a storyteller, right? It is a natural, innate capability. But there's something weird happens when you go into an organisation. Whenever we get into formal meetings, presentations, our language changes. Have you noticed this? People will stand in front of a PowerPoint presentation and they'll have some dot points and they'll say, and because of this, and therefore, and my 3 points are, right? And all the stories disappear. So I'm just saying, look, can we get some of those things that we do naturally in those informal areas and bring them into, the business environment that we're working in? And you might ask, so why would you do that? Why would you bother with stories? Well, there's the couple of key reasons. First of all, that when you ask sellers, and especially sales managers, what really differentiates a great salesperson, it's more often than not that they can actually tell a story, right? They have a story about their product, they have a story about the implementation, they have stories about good service, bad service, how they've recovered. They have an array of different stories they can tell, which helps them connect with their customer and helps build rapport, right? I was working with some CEOs recently, and one was a CEO of a real estate company. And this real estate company sold essentially real estate for investment purposes. And as I'm talking, I'm taking him through the material, the CEO sort of says, oh, I've got an idea. And I said, okay, well, what are you thinking? He said, well, my very best salespeople not only are good storytellers, but they own investment properties. So they're telling it from first-hand experience, as opposed to this abstract, sort of thing that they might relate to. And so that's another element of it. How do you get these people this first-hand experience so they have stories to tell, right? I like to think of storytelling along a spectrum, right? So if you like, down this end of the spectrum, the right-hand side, I call this big S storytelling. This is essentially what filmmakers do, it's what authors do, playwrights. They need to know about plot structures and character development and all the nuances of crafting beautiful stories. Advertising agencies, I think, are down that end as well, right? But the work we do is right down the other end, right? It's the small S storytelling. It's the anecdotes. It's the examples. It's the real-life experiences. And when you tell a senior leader that, they actually get very relaxed because they think, when they hear the word storytelling, they think they have to do big S storytelling. They think they have to craft these beautiful stories and be absolutely perfect in every way. But once you show them that you can actually do a lot by these small S storytelling, you can sort of see the whole body relax. So that's probably step one in helping people understand this. Now, you can learn things from big S storytelling, right? That's really what this Congress is about and the things that we're learning here in these next couple of days. But you don't want to go too far. You don't want to get too close down this end when you're talking about oral storytelling. Because if you get too far, if you go too close, you end up performing your stories. I don't know, have you ever seen someone give a talk and they get to the story bits and all of a sudden their voice changes and they sort of go, and then 3 years ago we had a change. Like the whole body language changes. I've seen someone just recently stand up, give a talk, and as he got to one component, he would say, and this person said this, and this person said that. And I'm going, really? Like that's going to lose a business audience. They don't want to see that. They want stories to be invisible, right? And that's their aim here, for these oral stories to actually be invisible. The other thing, and this is one of the key reasons why you want to invest in, sort of getting these leaders and these sellers comfortable with stories, is that they're memorable. You think about all the things that you'll learn, especially in the next couple of days, any presentations you go to, it will be the stories that you remember, right? And the reason why the stories are memorable is they evoke emotion, and we remember what we feel. And the other thing is that you can see a story happening, right? When someone starts to recount a story, so when I was just telling you that little story about the shower heads, you can actually see that happening. And our visual memory is a very strong memory, right? We're driven. People think stories are about words, but actually stories are about pictures. Right? That's the thing that we're trying to evoke, is to help people see pictures. Now, I just want to take you through this little exercise here. I'm just going to read these things out. John walked on the roof, Bill picked up the eggs, Pete put on the helmet, Jim gave a speech, Frank built a boat, Harvey flipped the electric switch, Ted wrote the play. Okay, so thinking about those things, can anyone remember who wrote the play? Okay. What about who walked on the roof? Or maybe who picked up the eggs? Okay, well, let me show you another list and see if there's any change. So Santa Claus walked on the roof, the Easter Bunny picked up the eggs, the Viking put on the helmet, John F. Kennedy gave a speech, Noah built a boat, Edison flipped the electric switch, William Shakespeare wrote the play. So, who picked up the eggs? Who walked on the roof? Ah, interesting. So, all of a sudden we get a much better recall, right? And partly is because that second list have got stories attached to it, right? Whereas the first list is just this disconnected set of information. Yet that's how we present a lot of information in organisations. We just present disconnected things that are very hard to hold on to, very hard to remember. Whereas if you connect them with a story, there'll be something that they can hang on to. It's like an umbrella that they can sort of hang on to.